Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Speaking Spurs and me, Kieran, talking all things Tottenham on transfer deadline day. The deadline did pass at 7 o'clock. However, deals were still going through as long as people put in an official deal sheet. So, those of you that don't know, even though we talk about it every year, a deal sheet is a document with a certain amount of information in it that both clubs need to have filled out and sent over to the respective leagues to make sure that any other discussions can still continue to take place to get things over the line. That happened in the case with um, a few deals today. We are going to talk about everything that we've done in this transfer window, starting with what we've done today. So I've released a couple of YouTube shorts throughout the day just to keep you updated of things going on. But in the end, it only materialized that we got one player over the line, and that one did happen to be Randal Kolo Muani. So it's only a loan for the season. There is no option to buy. There is no obligation to buy. It's just a straight loan. And I think in the end, that probably is the most sensible thing to do. He is a player that we looked at in the past, somebody that Ange Postecoglou actually tried to get in January. And we didn't manage to get it over the line. He ended up going to Juventus, which is the move that he's been pushing for pretty much the whole of the summer. That didn't manage to get that over the line. They actually signed two other players instead, Luisa Penda and can't remember the other one off the top of my head. Oh, it was Jonathan David, somebody that we were also linked with several times throughout the window, but mainly because that was a free transfer and that is a Daniel Levy dream. So let's talk about Randal Kolo Muani and then we will move on to the outgoings from today. And we'll also just talk about our window in general, how we think it actually went and what could have potentially been better. So Tottenham announced it on their website at 8 o'clock. However, this is one that's been kind of ticking on all day. We opted for him instead of Adamola Lookman, who we were very much interested in. We set a deadline for Lookman last night. Atalanta came back and said, "Yep, let's get negotiations going." But it is believed that Dominic Solanke's injury is worse than we first thought. Apparently, they've given him an injection for the inflammation because they couldn't tell what it was. So the reason we haven't heard anything yet, two reasons really. One is because we didn't want people whacking up the price of any potential players we were looking to bring in because they knew we were desperate. And two, because we don't know the extent of the injury until it can be looked at. But as we know, swelling quite often leads to a couple of days before they can have proper scans to know what's going on. But there are rumours that it could be between 2 and 3 months, possibility of surgery. But I think that's more because they don't know the extent of the problem. So that then shifted us from Lookman over to Muani, who although can operate on the wing like Lookman. Lookman can operate on the wing and play up top, but predominantly he's become more of a wide player, whereas Muani is more of a front man that can also play out wide. So that gives the option if you need Richarlison and Muani in the same lineup, either of them can play out on the left and both of them can play up top. So it kind of solves two problems in one. It also means that they can interchange throughout during a game. So great flexibility and versatility. So it's actually quite a clever signing, and the fact that it's only a loan signing gives us the opportunity to have a real good look at him with no obligation. It also gives us a chance to negotiate our own deal without any interference from PSG saying no, this is the option that you took up, and that is the price we're settling on. So it's quite sensible, and then we get to see what happens with Dominic Solanke because the guy was indestructible at Bournemouth. He's now come to Spurs and all of a sudden he's become injury riddled. It's just the curse of Tottenham Hotspur. We do this to players. But yes, so the 26-year-old French international Randal Kolo Muani has come into the club on season-long loan and will wear the number 39 shirt. He has said, "I'm really happy and very proud to be such a great club. I can't wait to meet my teammates, all the fans, and get out on the pitch. I know what the coach expects from me. I will fight hard for the shirt, the club, and the fans. I will give everything for this team." Thomas Frank has said Randall is a quality player who has proven himself over a number of years playing for big teams in the Champions League and also with good experience for the France national team, not natural team. That would be weird. He's a good age in the prime of his career, has good qualities that will suit both us and the Premier League, and gives us a different position, different option in the final third. being able to play out wide and through the middle. We are all excited for what Randall can add to the squad, and I'm looking forward to working with him. So yeah, he's a versatile attacker, can play anywhere across that front line. His professional journey began at Nantes, progressed through the ranks there. Professional debut in November 2018. 3 seasons with those in League One in their first team. Became a key player for them, scored 23 goals for them, and then in the final season helped them to the Coupe de France, which was Nantes' first major honour in over 20 years. That earned him a move to the Bundesliga, which is a step up, to Eintracht Frankfurt, and that's where the majority of us got to see him really show his talents. That was in July 2022, and he was, well, sensational in Germany. Registered 43 goal involvements in just 50 appearances, which is this is something that he shines in. He always produces good figures when playing regularly, a bit like Richarlison in that sense. If you compare them both, they've got very good goal involvements when it comes to starting and coming off the bench. The issue for both of them, Richarlison's more of an injury thing, and Kolo Muani's has been, as he's moved on from Eintracht Frankfurt, the clubs that he's gone to, he's no longer the main man. He's had to rotate with people and bide his time and didn't get loads of appearances. So also whilst at Eintracht Frankfurt, he helped them to the 2023 German Cup final. He's an imposing, pacey attacker. He's got good ability on the ball and in the air. He then managed to go back to his homeland and join Paris Saint-Germain the following summer, helping them to 2 Ligue 1 titles, the Coupe de France and the Trophy des Champions. Issue is, though, game time just became more difficult for him. It's a club full of superstars, really, in a lot of the front positions. But everywhere he's been, he has scored goals. He has a very impressive return rate in front of goal. And that continued in the loan spell at Juventus earlier in the year, where he actually scored 8 goals in just 16 Serie A appearances. But he also gets assists. That's a good thing. A seasoned international. He got his first call up for France national team in September 2022, and has since earned 31 caps, scoring on 9 occasions. And he was in their 2022 FIFA World Cup squad. He played his part in reaching the final for the second successive tournament, scoring in the semi-final victory over Morocco before he helped his country to the final four of the UEFA 2024, where he also scored in the semi-finals. I mean, I suppose we have to add the fact that he has actually missed a penalty in a final. And a lot of Spurs fans have been talking about that today, going, oh, he's rubbish. He missed that penalty, blah, blah, blah. He's not going to be taking penalties for Spurs. And if we do get to finals, we can only get to the final of certain cups. We could have a Champions League final, a League Cup final, and an FA Cup final. You don't get penalty shootouts in the Premier League. So he's only got 3 opportunities in this season to potentially take a penalty. All right. So chill out on the penalties. Not an issue. Harry Kane himself misses penalties. He missed one against us in pre-season. All right. So these things do happen. I'm sure we have plenty of other people that could take penalties. So that's Randal Kolo Muani. I think it's a very good addition, and the way that we've done it as a loan deal really suits us. So, what else has happened? Um, in terms of other signings that we've actually made, Xavi Simons came through the door. We know attacking midfielder, 22 years old, that number 10 that we've been looking for. One that we didn't expect was unveiled before the Bournemouth game, which didn't end too well. But interestingly, talking about that Bournemouth game, we have lost the last 7 games going into the international break. It just seems to be a bit of a curse for us. I don't know if it's because our players take their foot off the gas because they're worried about getting injured before they go out and play those games. But Richarlison was firing on all cylinders. His hold up play was great. He's been running around, working really hard. And in that game, it just seemed like nothing was coming off for him. So I wonder if a lot of them just had that international break in the back of their minds. And also, we really struggle after we beat Man City. So it was kind of the worst combination. We beat City, we struggle in the next game. This one falls before the international break, and that happens to be a game that we continuously lose. And also, I find that we always struggle against Bournemouth. Um, they played some great football, by the way. But anyway, back to transfers. Xavi Simons from RB Leipzig, permanent transfer. €65 million, and there are add-ons in that as well. Other players that came in: Mohamed Kudus from West Ham, €63.8 million is what they think the final figure actually was. 24-year-old, great first season at West Ham, a bit more inconsistent in the second, but that could be down to the nature of West Ham as a club, and plenty of their players did not perform last season. Not a great one for them on the pitch. Been a very good signing so far. Again, another one that kind of failed to live up to expectations against Bournemouth, but it seems like, again, that was a whole squad thing. So great things to come from him. Right winger, very tricky. My issue with him in the Bournemouth game, he does get a bit like Lucas Moura, where he will beat a couple of men and decide that he needs to try and beat a third man. I found there was plenty of situations in that game where he just tried that one man too many when there was actually a pass on instead. And I could see other players around him getting quite frustrated in that. And I found myself screaming at the at the screen constantly saying, "Just pass the ball. Nope, Lucas Moura." Really frustrating. But I have no doubt he's going to be a great player. He's fun to watch. Matisse Tell became a permanent transfer after his loan last season. We did have an option to buy, but we did manage to get him cheaper than the option to buy. 20-year-old centre forward, um, from Bayern Munich, €35 million for that one. Kevin Danso, a lot of people are not considering as a signing in this window, but he actually is, although we did have an obligation to buy, signing him from Lens for €25 million. 26 years old, solid centre back, ridiculously long throw. Let's hope we can get him on the pitch to utilise that a little bit this season. I like him. Um, in a way, I'm kind of glad we didn't sign a centre back, because this gives Danzo an opportunity. It'll be nice to see Kota Takai when he's back fully from injury, to see what he can do. We'll talk about him in a second. Um, yeah, Luka Vuskovic is another one, but he technically isn't a new signing because he's been on our books for a few years. He's just been out on loan, kind of plying his trade, and he's back out on loan again. He's gone off to Hamburg, a move that he really pushed for. He just needs regular football. A lot of people are disappointed we've allowed him to go on loan, but he's only 18 years old, and I think the Bundesliga is probably the next step for him. He did really well in pre-season, but I think it is the right move, because had he stayed at the club, his minutes, they just wouldn't have been what he needs right now. Selfishly, it'd have been great for him to stay, but from his development and what we need from him in the future, this is the right move. So then, talking about another centre back, Kota Takai, 20-year-old Japanese player that we signed from Kawasaki in the J1 League, €5.8 million. This is a massive, massive step up. It really is. Um, I can't stress that enough. We don't know much about the player in terms of what he's going to offer at this level. Uh, the problem is, unless you have lots of Japanese teams playing Premier League clubs in, not even in pre-season, it'd have to be right up to the last couple of games leading into the season. It's really hard to know the standard of these teams to actually compare it. So it'll be interesting to see what happens now he's back from injury. He's done his running. I believe he's actually training with the squad a little bit now, tentatively, but hopefully we can ramp that up and maybe get to see him at the end of some of the games. One of the biggest signings that came in through the door, another one on loan, that is Joao Palhinha from Bayern Munich. 30 years old now, defensive midfielder. He's been pretty solid so far, and looks like he's striking up a good cohesion with Rodrigo Bentancur, who hopefully will sign a new contract at some point soon. Yeah, so the loan fee for him was €5 million. There is an option to buy at 30 million, and I don't know whether that was £30 million or €30 million. I can't remember off the top of my head. I don't know if that's one that we take up. I have no doubt Daniel Levy will try to negotiate some sort of cheaper fee for that one, because he will be 31 then. Do you really want to pay £30 million or euros for a 31-year-old, um, who no doubt will slow down? Injuries may start to creep in, and his game is based on, smashing into tackles. So it'll be interesting to see how that develops, but I think it was a very shrewd signing. I'm really, really happy with that one. I think it's something that we needed, the experience. We know in the Premier League he tops the tackling charts. So yeah, it's something that we definitely need, a little bit of a calm head in front of the defense. Um, So we'll talk about some outgoings. Obviously, we know Pierre Emil Højbjerg technically is one of the outgoings. I know it seems like forever because he was actually on loan last season to Marseille, did really well there. He's only 29 years old now. He's one that I would have preferred that actually stayed. Had he stayed, we wouldn't have needed um, Palinha. It's just kind of it's a bit unlucky that he wasn't bang on for the style of Ange Postecoglou. However, I loved Højbjerg, and I think last season with all the injuries we had, and I think the fact that he didn't quite fit the Postecoglou system would have helped us last season. Postecoglou wouldn't have liked that because it would have changed the way we had to play. But I think he'd have got us out of trouble in quite a few games. I don't think we'd have finished as low as we did. I'm not saying we'd have, it'd have solved all our problems, but I really do think he'd have helped out in some games. But anyway, he's gone. Marseille, end of loan, and they had an obligation to buy, so we knew he was going. Bryan Hill out the door finally. It was a bit of a strange one. It's probably one of the worst transfers we'd had. Um, Certainly in recent times. He was meant to come in as this amazing youngster. Eric Lamella was included in the deal to go the other way. We essentially gave them Eric Lamella and paid for Bryan Hill on top of that, which was really frustrating because he's he's just a lightweight player. Could have been like it in the mold of a David Silva. Never really adapted to the Premier League. The strength didn't improve. Had some nice moments on the ball, but was never ever going to develop into a Premier League player. The league is just too physical for him, I think. 24 years old now, gone to Girona, and I believe that was like 8 point something million. So that really is a massive loss because we're saying we paid 20 something million for him, but really, if you include Lamella, who came off the back of a pretty decent season as well when we let him go, I think for Lamella it was just injury ridden. He has actually retired now um, this season, and he said it was purely because the pain, it was just too much. He was having injections every single game to get him through them, and he was also on the top dosage. So if you include Lamella in that and the way he played in that season before he went, you're probably looking at near on 40 million that the Bryan Hill deal was actually worth. Um, just didn't work out. Been on endless loans, and yeah, we've lost a lot of money on that one. Next one, Manor Solomon. Um, he was on the bench for the Bournemouth game. There were talks today that we weren't actually going to let him go at all, and that Thomas Frank was impressed with what he'd seen from him in training. But I wonder if it was actually just a case of we had to bring him into the squad because of the Solanke injury. And although he wasn't really in Thomas Frank's plans as such, he was still better than some of the other options we could have brought in. Because, if Solomon had been left out the squad, you're putting another youngster on the bench. And in all fairness to Solomon, he came into the club on a free, got injured pretty quickly, hasn't really been given a chance at Spurs, shipped out on loan, had a very good season last season. Um, in the championship, and Leeds were looking at him, but it ended up being Crystal Palace. They put a deal sheet for him. Put a deal sheet in. We also put the deal sheet in to make sure it could happen. And I'm just going to check because the news hadn't actually come in yet that the deal had been done for him. I know they were just waiting to announce it. It's just a loan. From what I understand, they are hoping on some sort of option to buy. Still not announced on the Spurs website, and I know this video is going to go out later than when I'm recording it, but it's actually 9:30 now. I'm just going to have a quick check. No, I'm going to have a look on Crystal Palace's website to see if they've got anything up. But in the meantime, something interesting happened today. Dele Alli has been released from Como. So Dele Alli is a free transfer. It'll be interesting to see um, if Tottenham decide to allow him to come back to train with us. That's something that we've quite often done with in the past with players that are without a club that are former players of ours or they've been injured and they're rehabilitating. We've allowed them to come back and train. They don't train with the first team. They train with the under 21s or the under 18s. So that will be an interesting one because if he comes back and trains and we like the look of him, free transfers you can sign later. I can't remember what the deadline is for free transfers, but they can definitely still be signed. Um, no, Crystal Palace's website. There's nothing up about him, Manor Solomon. Let's have a look under news. Just talking about JD Canvot, Edward leaving. No, that's it. I don't like their website actually. It's very, considering they're a Premier League club, their website is very, very clunky looking. There's a lot I don't like about our club, but our website to get onto the news links is a lot better than some of the other clubs. Um, yeah, nothing about it at all. So the Manor Solomon one, I suppose, is one that's going to be ongoing. But because they had the deal sheet in, they've still got until later this evening to get that one over the line. So I'm assuming we'll hear something about that later. But yeah, in terms of our transfer window, yeah, we got some good players in. There's no doubt about it. It has strengthened the squad. It has improved the squad. Depth wise, I don't think we're really much better off. Um, we're kind of more bloated now because Basuma ended up not going. He he was linked to go over to Turkey. An agreement couldn't actually be made, and he's just ended up staying. There were Premier League clubs that were potentially looking at him. West Ham were one of those clubs. It just doesn't come off for him. So unfortunately, we're going to be stuck with him now. Hopefully, he can knuckle down and help us out a bit. I think had Bazuma gone out the door, there's a possibility we could have looked at bringing somebody in as a potential midfield replacement. Conor Gallagher is someone we were very much linked with. But I believe they were looking for, I think it was like 43 million Atletico Madrid for him. So that might have been a little bit of a stumbling block. I know his wages are fairly high out there as well. So that would have been a lot of money and wages. I know we've got the budget for it at the moment because of the outgoings that we've had. Oh, Sonny as well. Forgot to talk about that in the outgoings. Sonny left the club. Duh. Um, yeah, so a decent transfer window, a confusing one for us because we were linked with the world and his mate. That was always going to happen the second we had Champions League football. So if we look at players that we were linked with, it started off with Semenyo and Mbuemo. They were the two that we were really pushing for straight from the off. Mbuemo only ever wanted Manchester United because he grew up a Manchester United fan. So off he went there. Semenyo actually signed a new contract and destroyed Pedro Porro at the weekend. I don't think that's because Pedro Porro is a bad player. He's actually been defensively quite strong at the back end of last season and the beginning of this season and pre-season. I think Semenyo is going to cause loads of teams problems. I think he's a very good player. And yeah, we even tried to go back in for him late on, but because he'd signed a new contract, that technically would have made his price bigger. There was the Gibbs White situation where we wasted 2.5 weeks on that, only for him to sign a new contract. Pretty sure he's been held hostage by Marinakis, and there was probably some dirt on Gibbs White that he had, or said he was going to, I don't know, kill a member of his family or something to make him stay. Very odd character, Marinakis. Obviously, Eberechi Eze, everything was nearly done, and then Arsenal get the injury. Um, and then decided to go in for him. And as a boyhood Arsenal fan in the Arsenal Academy, released, always had a point to prove, wanted to go back there. In all fairness, Arsenal are further ahead than we are, as much as I hate to say it. They are closer to doing things in the league and they're probably better equipped for the Champions League than we are. So a little bit annoying that one, but obviously it worked out in the end because Xavi Simons is probably the best of the bunch. And then we were linked with a lot of defenders, loads of defenders. Nathan Ake, um, you had Akanji, who ended up getting a move to, I think it was Inter Milan, but because that one was going on, that then meant today we were linked with Pavard, who would have been a very good addition. 29 years old now, bags of experience internationally and at club level, has won a lot of trophies. Um, we were also, I forgot about the forward line. We were also linked with Johan Visser, but he never really had his sights set on us. It was always Newcastle, and that was always going to be dependent on the Isaac situation. Um, who is it from Brentford as well that we were linked with? Let's just look at their squad. I don't know why I said that like that. Apologies. Look at their squad. Doesn't not let me move across. Oh. Nathan, was it Nathan Collins? Might have been. Yeah, I think we were briefly linked with Nathan Collins. Midfielders, we were linked with a fair few of them. Um, Norgard, Damsgaard, Conor Gallagher. Wingers, we were pretty much linked with the world and its mate when it comes to wingers. Um, Savino, obviously, we chased a lot. His position at Manchester City desperately wants to play, not getting enough minutes in his eyes. But we know that Pep Guardiola likes to rotate his players, and that's part of the key to the success, I think, for him. They get less injuries, even though they have. Pep tries to keep a smaller squad than a lot of other Premier League teams because he likes the competition. But because he rotates them, it keeps them fresher. But the problem with that is the players don't want necessarily to be taken off to stay fresh. They want to play. Um, but yeah, the Savino one, somebody on the Man City board was clearly blocking that, not allowing it to happen, despite the fact that we wanted it, they wanted it. Pep Guardiola wanted to keep him, but he's very much a manager of if people don't want us to be here, then they can go. It doesn't matter how good they are. But that was always going to be dependent on whether they could get Rodrigo in from Real Madrid. We were obviously linked with Rodrigo as well. I really think that was more agent talk and paper talk to try and get that one over the line. Um, so yeah, all in all, it was an okay transfer window. I think a lot of negative stuff happened throughout that kind of dampened it, and the length of time it was taking us to get these players through the door was frustrating. And a lot of people have turned around and said, "Oh, isn't it amazing that we spent all that time working on Gibbs White, all that time working on Eze, but then when we wanted Simons, sorry, he prefers to just be called Xavi. When it came to Xavi, we got it done like that. When it comes to Muani, we got it like that." But if you actually look back at the transfer window, right from the beginning when we were looking for a number 10, Xavi Simons was somebody that we were linked with. I thought it was just paper talk, but maybe it was that we genuinely were kind of inquiring at the time. Um, he obviously wanted to go to Chelsea. That was the signs we were told. But yeah, we ended up with him. And Randal Kolo Muani is somebody that we were linked with back in last January. And he went to Juventus. So I have no doubts that he knew of the interest. There would have been talks back then. His agent would have been spoken to. Um, and we were talking to a lot of forward players. Like Jonathan David is somebody we were talking about for a while. But again, he wanted Juventus. So I do think it's a case of because it's happened so quickly after not getting another player, people have just assumed we were only in for certain players and then have jumped in at the last minute for these other people as replacements. But I really don't think that's the case. I do think there was a lot of background talks. We've been told in the past Johan Langer very much works in the shadows, unlike Paratici, who was always on his phone with his old school corded headphones in talking to people. If you see Johan Langer on the phone, it's in the more traditional sense, phone to the ear. Um, but yeah, I definitely think there was a lot going on in the background. All in all, Rafael Leao, he was another one we were linked with. That would have been a mega signing, by the way. Difficult one to pull off because um, they were commanding such a high fee. Wages, I don't think would have been a problem because um, he wasn't paid loads at AC Milan. But yeah, all in all, I think we can look back now and say it was a successful transfer window. It would have been nice to get all these players in earlier so Thomas Frank had more time to work with them. So let's see how we do. The international break is here. It's a time for us to reset with the players that are staying. Although I do actually think the majority of our players are going out on international duty. Let's just have a look at our first team. Um, that will tell us more, won't it? So Vicario has been called up constantly for Italy. So he'll be off on international duty. Dragosan injured. Danzo important internationally. Paulinho, yes. Bazuma, yes. Richarlison, yes. Madison injured. Tell will be with the France under 21s. I don't I don't know if Udogi got called up, obviously because he's been injured. I'm not 100% sure on that one. I'll have to check. Um, Archie Gray will be with the under 21s. Bergval, yes. Romero, always. Solanke injured. Kudus, yes. Kulisevsky injured. Johnson, yes. Porro. I don't know if he got called up. I'll double check that. Spence with his first call up. Kota Takai coming back from injury. Solomon now going out on loan. Odobert will be with the French under 21s with Tell. Pat Matassar, important for his country. Bentancur, yeah. Kinski, yes. Ben Davies, yes. Mickey van der Ven, yes. Brandon Austin, no. He'll be staying. So will Dane Scarlett, and Bryan Gill has now gone out on permanent transfer as well. That still hasn't actually been announced by Tottenham. He's still showing as in our squad, whereas players like Vuskovic, it's showing that he's now on loan. Yang Min Hyuk, Ashley Phillips, Alejo Veliz, and Alfie Devine are all showing as on loan. So let's just have a quick look. Who was it? Porro, and who was the other one? Not that you can tell me. Udogi. So let's look at the Italy squad. Mhm. 3 days ago. Apologies that I'm now not talking to you whilst looking at this. Ugh, Gattuso. Can't stand him. Defenders. Here we go. Oh yeah, Vicario was called up. Bastoni, Bellanova, Calafiore, Cambiasso, Di Lorenzo, Di Marco, Gatti, Leone from Liverpool, Mancini. No call up for Destiny Udogi, but I do have a feeling that's just because of the injury and it's probably too soon for him. And who was the other one I said? Porro. Spain. There's probably people in watching this going, yes, the squad is blah, 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 because you already know. Carvajal returns to the Spain squad. Yes, Pedro Porro. He has been called up. So yeah, pretty much every single person in the first team has been called up to international duty or they are injured. So the only people staying back from the first team squad is going to be Brandon Austin and Destiny Udogi. So that is going to make for fantastic training. Yeah. Just going to check on Lucas Bergval. Oh, yeah, because Alexander Isak got named in the Sweden squad, didn't he? Despite everything that was going on. I mean, that is red flags, isn't it, really? The fact that he forced the move the way he did, wouldn't be happy with that. If that was me, would let me know in the comments. Would you have been happy with that? The way he forced it, the move. Would you have wanted him, knowing that he behaved the way that he did? I don't know. There was something about it I just didn't like the refusing to play, and then Johan Visser went and did the same. I don't like it when they try and force people's hands. I liked the way players like, even though Eze didn't come to us, I prefer the way that he did it. The way I know Mark Guehi hasn't gone out in the end, but the way that they did it, they continue to play. And actually, Mark Guehi scored a banger of a goal the other day. Midfielders, yeah, Lucas Bergvall got his call up as well. So yeah, training is going to be interesting because obviously a lot of our youngsters play for their respective under 21 teams as well. So yeah, all in all, right, we'll leave it there. It was a decent transfer window. It's been marred a little bit by um, the amount of moves that didn't come to fruition. Although I think, despite all the number 10 saga, Xavi Simons is a fantastic signing, not just because of his experience, but also because of his age. It feels like he's been around forever because he broke on the scene as a 15-year-old, was a first team player at 16, and has done some great things. There was talk of attitude problems before, but I don't think that's the case. I think he's always remained professional. He has that flair. He has the quality as well. Um, So I'm kind of excited for the rest of the season. I think we've got a more balanced squad. We have a hell of a front line as long as Richarlison um, stays fit, and that game against Bournemouth was a one-off because of the international break. So yeah, thanks for sticking around. Bit of a long video there, but we always get a longer video at the end of a transfer window. But yeah, still no official announcement of any of our outgoings. No. Cool. So we'll leave it there. Thanks for sticking around. Hope you enjoyed that one. I have been Kieran from Speaking Spurs. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment. And as always, come on, you Spurs.